Hello everyone, I'm Natalie Keatley, Senior Director of Solutions Marketing at Avaya, and thank you very much for joining me here today, where I'm going to talk about the everything customer and how organizations can leverage cloud to address those particular needs. But before I do that, let me just introduce Avaya. Organizations today are really built on experiences, and millions of those experiences are being delivered by Avaya because Avaya is all about connecting people. It connects customers, employees, and users in ways that offer far more immersive and more productive, more memorable experiences. And we do that because we're focused very much on the future of work and the future of the customer experience center. So we're constantly looking at innovation and partnerships that can deliver some of those game-changing business benefits. And our cloud capability is supported by a multi-cloud application ecosystem so that we can ensure we're constantly delivering on the customer and employee experiences that organizations need. And through doing that, we're helping businesses grow and thrive by delivering experiences that matter. So let's just take a look at the everything customer, because today we live, we work, we consume in the experience economy. And every single day we find that technology is really helping to break down some of those preconceived ideas on what's possible. But the real question for many organizations is, what are customers looking for? Because customers today want everything. And what they want today could be different to what they wanted yesterday, and certainly what they're going to want in the future. And it's constantly changing and evolving. Gartner called this the everything customer because sometimes they want to serve themselves, but other times they want to pick up the phone and speak to someone in the contact center. Sometimes they want their information used to personalize specific offers or adverts to them. But other times they berate the organization for not respecting their privacy. Sometimes they want to interact via WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and Alexa, but other times they just want to resort to traditional phone calls. So to put it quite simply, they really want everything. They want to be connected, but they want to be left alone. They want to be treated equally, but they also want to be served uniquely. They want everything to be fully featured, but they also want it to be effortless and easy. And they want a consistent and expected experience, but they also want to be surprised with the unexpected, with the memorable experience. So the bottom line really is that they want a lot. And delivering on those customer experience ambitions is more difficult for organizations than ever. So how do you go about delivering against the needs for the everything customer, and what defines that experience? Well, first of all, it really has to be memorable in order to differentiate it from every other experience, and it has to be effortless. In other words, it needs to just happen. It has to be proactive. It has to be consistent. But equally, it has to be organization-wide, because when it comes to shaping the customer experience, the feelings and the emotions and the relations of the employee are just as important, because they are the direct result of the one-off and cumulative interactions that they have with the customers, with partners, with leaders, with teams, processes, and tools. In fact, Mercer actually suggests that organizations that treat their employees like customers, firstly, gain really great insights into the pain points and the needs of those employees, but also can help them define and deliver employee journeys that can help deliver the right experience for them. Because if you're really going to deliver the customer experience that customers are expecting, then you need to have a relentless focus on the employee, because customer experience and employee experience are really just two sides of the same coin, and you can't have the connected customer experience without a connected employee experience. Now, when organizations are focused on the employee experience, they will deliver better results, because according to research by Gallup, satisfied employees are 3 times more likely to solve customer problems than employees that aren't. And according to research by Gartner, satisfied employees and organizations that invest in the employee experience are more profitable on a per employee basis than organizations that don't. And not just by a little bit, that they actually say that they're up to 4.2 times more profitable per employee. Now, that doesn't mean that it's easy, because organizations really have to work quite hard in order to keep employees productive and happy. And that's quite difficult for many organizations, because for the reality of most organizations is that they managing everything across a range of different tools and applications and ecosystems and platforms. So joining all these pieces together in order to not only serve the customer experience, but also the employees who are using all these applications and devices and platforms becomes quite a challenge, because for many organizations, these are big, monolithic, disconnected capabilities. But organizations have to persevere, because if they really are going to deliver the customer experience, then they need to be absolutely focused on the employee experience. But not only that, they also have to take into account the user experience, because as we all know, the user experience has evolved and changed radically over the last few years. I mean, if you look back to 2000, everything was really governed around surfing the web. So as long as you had a laptop and you had a keyboard, you could really just surf, find information that you wanted, and the experience was very, very much around the websites. Then the smartphone was introduced in about 2009, 2010, and that revolutionized everything around the user experience, because now all of a sudden users were able to use capabilities like touch and typing and voice commands, and all of a sudden it wasn't just limited to interfacing via the web. Now, organizations started to introduce mobile applications. And again, that has had a significant impact on how consumers want to interact with technology. Fast forward to now, and the next big evolution has really been around the introduction of natural language recognition, natural language understanding, and enabling things like smart devices to let consumers really interact wherever and however. And we've seen that user experience change, because now customers no longer have to go onto a website or even onto a mobile application to get information. All they need to do is ask a device in their home, ask Alexa. And we've seen things like artificial augmented reality and virtual reality completely change things like shopping experiences. When you look at the likes of Snapchat, where they've really taken advantage of capabilities like that in order to do more, to enable consumers to consume more. So the whole user experience has completely escalated. And these items are completely critical when it comes to organizations determining how to serve the everything customer. Because now, if I'm in my car, I'm expecting to talk to my car. If I'm trying to figure out where the nearest petrol station is or coffee shop is, I'm expecting my car to be able to navigate me to that. And all of this is driving what organizations need to do in order to bring these experiences together. Because you no longer just have to think about the customer experience, but now you have to think about the employees serving that customer as well. And you have to think about the user experience. So all these things coming together are really driving a very complicated set of requirements that organizations are having to solve for. So how do organizations start to address and meet the needs of the everything customer in what is a multi-experience world, a world that is made up of experience for the customer, for the employee, for the user, which bridges so many different devices, different channels, modalities, touch points, and really needs to come together seamlessly and cohesively. So if you look at uh, the framework for delivering essential customer experience. It really focuses on the things that are going to make that experience unique, good, effortless, consistent, memorable. And it also looks at the things, the enablers that are going to make that happen. Getting connected, orchestrating processes, managing resources, and infusing knowledge and AI. So I'm just going to walk through the framework for serving the needs of the everything customer, step by step. The first is when you look at the experiences themselves. What is it that defines the experience? Whether it is the customer, the employee, or the user, it all comes down to four key things. First of all, the experience has to be effortless. That means it needs to be intuitive. It needs to be natural, fast, proactive. In other words, it needs to just happen. Secondly, it has to be personalized. Now, that means it needs to be targeted for them. It needs to be customized to that employee or that customer or that user. But very importantly, it really needs to be memorable if it's going to differentiate your organization from every other experience being delivered out there by other organizations. The third thing is it has to be intelligent. Now, that really means that it's got to be informed. And to be informed, it means it needs to be relevant in the moment that matters to that customer. It needs to be based on all the context that makes a difference to that customer, to that employee, to that user. And finally, it really has to be consistent. In other words, it needs to be expected. It needs to be the same. And very importantly, it needs to be reversible, because there's nothing more frustrating than when customers are trying to perhaps return an item or get a refund, and they suddenly find out that the experience of doing that isn't quite as good, isn't quite as effortless, isn't quite as memorable as it was to actually purchase the item in the first place. So it's absolutely critical that organizations are focused on achieving that. Now, how do they actually go about doing that? Well, it's quite simple. There are four key enablers or four key pillars upon which every customer experience really should be centered. And the first is all about getting connected. Now, getting connected is making sure that customers can connect with organizations however they choose, irrespective of the journey, irrespective of the touch point, the modality, the interaction type that they plan to use, the device that they happen to be using. Customers need to be able to get connected. And in order to do that, the organization needs to look at the experience holistically. It's not the channels that matter anymore. For years, we've been fixated as an industry on omnichannel. Omnichannel isn't the thing that matters, because omnichannel is focused on the channel. If you're going to really deliver the needs for the everything customer, then you have to be focused on the entire journey. And you have to be focused on the experience at every single part of the journey. Now, depending on how the customer might be interacting with you, whether it's through a mobile phone, whether it's through an Alexa device, whether it's through a website, the content, the experience, and the capability needs to be the same, which means now all of a sudden you need to start designing your experience irrespective of how they're actually going to be delivered. That's absolutely critical for organizations to get right, because the fixation on the channel is something that really leads organizations down into quite siloed, quite disparate, and quite disconnected customer journeys. But equally important, throughout the customer journey, getting connected is really about making sure that you're connecting the customer with everything that they need. So you're connecting them with the right resources, you're able to predict their needs, you're able to understand their sentiment throughout the process, and you're able to take action as and where it is required. The second pillar that organizations really need to focus on is process orchestration. Now, this is really about making sure that Customers and employees and users have absolutely everything that they need at their fingertips. And that includes knowledge, access to subject matter experts, applications, real-time insights, so that every single engagement is effortless and positive. And that's critical because with the huge increase in online activities and the massive investments that have been made in things like virtual assistants and automations, it's easy to start to forget some of the things that are absolutely core to serving a customer. So things like an agent being able to have access to the right information at the right time because the customer just wants to speak to someone in the organization, a real person, as opposed to perhaps a virtual assistant. But one of the biggest challenges for the average employee is just getting their hands on that information, getting their hands on the right insights, getting in touch with the right resources who can help them to solve that problem. So when you hear things like an agent saying, I'm really sorry, but my system's running a little bit slow at the moment, quite often that's not really true. What's happening is they're scrambling on the back end, trying to pull together all the information they need, jumping from one screen to the next, hopping between one application and the next. So process orchestration is really about dissolving all the divides that exist in the customer journey, whether those are functional divides, resources, or application silos. And all of those things exist in organizations today, right? But it's about dissolving them so that you can get the best resources and teams engaged, regardless of the function that they do, that you recognize that everyone in the organization, either directly or indirectly, has a role to play in the customer journey, because actually the customer journey isn't limited to just the front office. It covers every part of the organization, and it's absolutely critical that organizations recognize that. And it's absolutely critical that they get the right insights when they need it, with the right capabilities and the right tools to the people who need it, irrespective of application source or the owner of the data. So that's really what process orchestration is really about. And in process orchestration, by doing that, you really start to enable and infuse customer-centric collaboration throughout the organization, where the whole organization is focused on solving customer problems. Now that leads really well into the third pillar, which is all about managing resources, because I talked a little bit about the importance of the employee experience. And of course, employee experience is really critical, because there are times when customers just want to talk to someone in your business, and that experience that they have with someone in your business could make or break their relationship with the organization. Now, resources, people, are probably the single biggest line item on any operational budget for a contact center. And typically, we see a lot of attrition in functions like contact centers. So it's really critical to get the right resources, to get the right tools to support those agents with everything that they need. And particularly as organizations are moving more and more of their contact center staff to work from home, and particularly as customer interactions become more involved and more difficult. So ensuring that agents have got all the coaching, they've got all the mentoring, they've got all the knowledge, all the support to resources that they may need at their fingertips is critical. But the other thing to realize is it's not just about the contact center agents that can benefit from better management. If you think about all the great best practices that we've had in the contact center over the years, all of those apply equally to functions outside of the contact center that are directly involved in serving customers. Think about your logistics functions, your billing functions, your credit functions, your loan application functions. All of those can benefit from things like workforce optimization, being able to do better scheduling and management, being able to do better monitoring and measurement and management of things like KPIs and and the likes. But equally, managing resources increasingly needs to apply to virtual resources as well. There's been a misunderstanding perhaps when it comes to bringing things like virtual assistants, chatbots and voice bots and the likes into organizations, that you put them in, you implement it and you leave it alone. But actually those resources need to be trained. They need to be monitored to make sure they're doing the right things. They need to be constantly improved. There's a cycle of continuous learning that needs to be applied to some of those resources. So it's absolutely critical then when organizations are looking at managing resources, that they're doing so whilst thinking about all the resources, virtual and human, front and back office throughout the organization. Which actually leads quite nicely onto the final pillar, which is all about knowledge and insights. Now, this is probably one of the things that most organizations have been focused on quite significantly over the last few years, because being able to leverage the power of knowledge and insights, being able to process the huge amounts of data and information and insights that exist within the average customer journey, and being able to do that in real time is incredibly powerful for organizations. Being able to do something with it in real time so that they can make an experience better or take a better next action is also absolutely critical. And that's where organizations are really seeing the importance of infusing things like knowledge, insights, and virtual assistants, not just into the front office or the front end parts of the process, the bits of the process that customers are perhaps using to serve themselves, but also equally to use that to infuse throughout the rest of the organization. And one of the things that's become really powerful over the last few years is giving every agent a virtual or digital co-worker to help them do their jobs even better. Because when you can let your agents do what they do best, which is the human touch, the relationship, the brand advocacy, and leave the virtual assistant to do the things that agents need to serve that customer, things like looking up information, tapping into a knowledge base, understanding sentiment, deciding on next best action, perhaps bringing a supervisor or back office expert into an interaction to help. That's when the power of knowledge and insights becomes absolutely core to the customer journey. So a huge focus over the last few years in terms of ensuring that the power of AI and analytics isn't limited just to the customer-facing functions, but also serves and powers the entire organization. Because the minute you start to do that, you really start to make the most of every single resource that you have within the organization. So with all of that, very important, 4 key pillars that organizations need to address if they're going to meet the needs of the everything customer, making the most of all the employees that are serving the everything customer and doing that across all the different user interfaces. It's absolutely essential that organizations are focused on getting customers connected, on orchestrating all the processes to support that customer experience, managing all the resources required to enable the right type of experience, and ensuring that knowledge and insights are infused throughout. So with that brings us on to the everything cloud, because in order to meet the needs of the everything customer, organizations really need to do things very quickly, very flexibly, and they need to be able to scale. They need to be able to change, innovate, and move at the speed that the everything customer is moving at. So we talk about the everything cloud, and there are a number of things. There are 4 things I'm going to talk about that organizations should be looking at to help to power the everything cloud to support the everything customer. The first being that the power of the everything cloud is it helps to make working anywhere a permanent fixture in contact centers. Now, I think over the last 12 months, there's probably been a very significant shift in attitudes because of the pandemic. And, you know, some recent research from Numeritas that I saw said that most key verticals like healthcare, like retail, etc., are actually expecting to keep a number of their employees working from home post the pandemic. And that includes agents, because organizations are realizing that allowing agents flexibility in terms of where they work can help to do things like improve work-life balance, quality of life, and in turn help to drive a better experience for the agent, which in turn helps to drive lower attrition rates. Now, that obviously doesn't mean that working remotely is going to be for everyone, but it does really start to open up a much wider talent pool to organizations. So think about some of those really hard to find skills, or perhaps difficult to staff times within a contact center. Well, all of a sudden, being able to work anywhere means that becomes a lot easier for organizations to manage. And if you think about this, one of the new trends that's sweeping through contact centers, which is the gig economy, enabling the gig agent to switch on, switch off as and when you need them, can really transform the way organizations have had to handle things like peak periods and seasonal demands that have been really difficult in the past. You know, you think about if you could enable an agent who's working from home to, rather than having one shift through the day from, say, 9 to 5, but rather split that up into smaller shifts to work around, I don't know, kids going to school. So they could have maybe an early morning shift, a middle of the day shift, and then an evening shift. That could not only accommodate the agent, but actually do quite a lot in terms of addressing the needs of the organization. And probably most importantly, working anywhere gives organizations the opportunity to support customers when they need it most. And that's probably between the hours of 8 and 9, because some research done by work area commerce shows that online shopping prime time is between 8 and 9 at night, and the highest conversion rates fall between Friday and Sunday. Now, all of that is probably the complete converse of the average staffing of the average contact center, which is running 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., perhaps Monday to Saturday, Sunday. So by being able to bring this flexibility of working anywhere into the contact center by leveraging cloud, you're not only helping your agents and giving them flexibility, but very importantly, you're addressing the needs of the everything. The second thing that organizations need to look for with the everything cloud is to make sure that customers are really put at the center of your cloud strategy. Because when you're considering your CCaaS or your contact center in the cloud, the main focus really has to be on achieving business outcomes. In other words, meeting the needs of that everything customer. And that means that you need to be able to serve the everything customer. You need to have agents who are effective in the digital workplace. But in many cases, unfortunately for organizations, a lot of cloud strategies are focused on consumption style, and they're not focused on business outcomes. They're not putting the everything customer at the center of the cloud strategy. And that's because in many cases, cloud has become a deployment option, but it's not the consumption style of cloud that's the solution. Yes, that's part of it, but that's not the core value of cloud. So it's really critical for organizations to remain focused on the customer needs and ensuring that any CCaaS solution enables them to meet the needs of their customers, which leads perfectly on to the third point, because for many organizations today, They are constrained by legacy sort of monolithic applications that don't necessarily give the flexibility that's required to meet the needs of the everything customer today or in the future. But no matter how limiting they are, one of the big challenges for organizations is that they become embedded into the very fabric of the organization. And in contact centers, that's definitely true, because you just have to think about how applications like workforce optimization and analytics and reporting have governed how contact centers are measured, how they're managed, how they operated today. And that's really, really critical for organizations, because when it comes to looking at how they move beyond these monolithic, very legacy applications into the cloud, they need to consider the impact on the business processes, on working procedures, on reward structures, and all the things that could cause disruption. So it's really important for organizations, when looking at their cloud strategies, to make sure that the cloud solution isn't dictating what you need to do and isn't constrained to a particular type of cloud. In other words, you really need to have the opportunity to find a cloud solution that supports your organization and helps you move forward with what you need in order to address the complete overall ambitions of the organization, which then moves into the fourth piece, because whatever the choice of cloud, it can never stand still, because customers, employees, and users don't stand still. So that means that whatever your cloud solution is, it needs to give you the ability to expand. It needs to give you the ability to innovate and to grow constantly, whether that's to meet the very complex needs of a particular vertical that you're in, or whether it's to address ever-changing needs and demands from customers and employees. It's absolutely essential that you have got the ability to innovate within that cloud in order to meet the growth demands for your business. So all of that together, what does that mean for organizations? Well, from an Avaya perspective, our focus on cloud is very much around helping organizations to transform their customer and employee experiences. So we're trying to give technologies and applications that focus as much on the customer experience as they do on the user experience and the employee experience. And we do that through our One Cloud, Avaya One Cloud, because there's really no boundaries in One Cloud in terms of what can be achieved, because it's based on a multi-cloud application ecosystem. And it's focused on two very important futures: the future of the customer experience center, which is very different today to what it was a number of years ago, where we had banks and banks of agents sitting in a contact center handling voice calls. Now it's all about the experience and becoming brand ambassadors, relationship managers to organizations, and supporting the customer experience that way. But it's also focused on the future of work, or the digital workplace, because we've seen over the last few years how digital innovation has really enabled some very different and new ways to work and ensure productivity across the organization. And that includes the contact center. So Avaya's One Cloud solution is really focused on providing a complete set of capabilities that cover the customer experience center and the digital workplace, but very importantly also supports all the collaboration and communication needs within those. So we've got our Avaya One Cloud CCaaS, and that's all about powering the customer experience centers for the everything customer, as well as the experiences for the employees who are serving those customers. We've got our Avaya One Cloud UCaaS portfolio, and that's really all about delivering the communication and team collaboration and workstream collaboration capabilities that are needed for today's workplace, in order to enable employees to be able to meet and collaborate and communicate very naturally, very easily, wherever they are, and not be restrained by time limitations or physical constraints or organization silos. And then, of course, there's the Avaya One Cloud CPaaS. And that's essentially a development environment that enables organizations to embed real-time communication and collaboration capabilities into any workflow or any application. And in so doing, can actually really quickly and really easily spin up applications tailored to the specific needs of the organization. And all of that is focused on the memorable experiences for customers, employees, and users. Now, how is that unique to others in the marketplace? Well, there are 4 things on which the Avaya One Cloud is premised, and that is, first of all, it's focused on multi-experience. So we're not singly focusing on any one persona, any one type of device, or specific channels or touch points. We're essentially bringing it all together, addressing the needs of all the personas, all the modalities, and all the touch points. So we're focused on multi-experience to deliver outcomes for customers, employees, users. Secondly, it's an open multi-cloud ecosystem. So that means it's combining the benefits of not just what Avaya's got in our portfolio, but we're also leveraging our extensive partner ecosystem to bring in market-leading capabilities. So, companies like Nuance and Google and Verint and many, many more. We're bringing all of that together. And then we're also supporting and basing our One Cloud on the leading cloud platforms, whether that's Microsoft Azure, whether it's Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, etc., IBM. It covers the entire ecosystem. It's also, in doing this actually enables the scalability and the speed and the agility, because it's leveraging things like microservices, containerization, and hyper automation. So with the microservices, it means we can pretty much develop small standalone services that we can then pull together into building blocks, and we can deploy them how organizations need them to be deployed. We're not locked into any monolithic architecture where all those capabilities and services are locked into a single application. We can containerize it all. So we've standardized on Kubernetes so that we've got a very portable, very extensible open source platform. And that's really cool, because that means we can now start to move some of these capabilities and applications from one environment to the next, because it's containerized. And finally, it's based on hyper automation. So as we've seen, the needs of cloud really accelerates, and the fact that cloud has become all about the speed and agility through which organizations can move. Avaya has invested heavily in machine learning and AI and robotic process automation in order to accelerate the deployment of cloud technology, whether that happens to be a private cloud deployment because the organization wants to keep control, wants an instance of cloud dedicated to them, or whether it is public cloud. We're deploying all this automation so that we can spin up any version of cloud at the speed at which customers or organizations need them. In other words, in days. All of this is supported through a very progressive cloud architecture. So we're not constrained to any one type of cloud. Customers can choose the type of cloud model that's best suited to them. So if they want to keep control, security, they want to be able to customize, etc., they can deploy what they need in private cloud. If they want to move quickly, they want to be able to scale fast, they want out-the-box capabilities turned on at speed, they can take public cloud. And very importantly, for organizations that have made massive investments in their existing capabilities and maybe want to still leverage parts of those investments while they layer cloud capabilities over the top, or perhaps they want to move some of those existing investments into more of a cloud model, Avaya One Cloud can support all of that. And finally, it's all supported by layered innovation and composable innovation, which means that you can innovate however and wherever you need to, because all of our CCaaS is underpinned by Avaya's CPaaS platform. So that means you can get speed to value applications, packaged applications that are available in your contact center, but you can also get unlimited integration potential, so that any customer experience use case can really be built very quickly and deployed very, very fast indeed. So all of that together, so all our CCaaS capabilities, all our UCaaS capabilities underpinned by CPaaS means that really we can bridge to anything. We can bridge front office and back office. We can bridge the collaboration needs of any application and any environment. And very importantly, we can serve the needs of the everything customer. So we've been in this space for many years. We absolutely are recognized in this space for our capabilities across the complete suite of customer experience applications, unified communication applications, and of course, very importantly, cloud. I'm just going to leave you with this quote, which is from ZK Research, which is, cloud is the future, but what flavor of cloud? Well, significantly, Avaya can deliver it in any format. So if you want to talk, I would be more than happy to chat about any part of this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.